Appian ACD301 exam practice questions with explanations are available in the video for you to study. You need to design a complex Appian integration to call a RESTful API. The RESTful API will be used to update a case in a customer's legacy system. What are 3 prerequisites for designing the integration? A. Define the HTTP method that the integration will use. B. Understand the content of the expected body, including each field type and their limits. C. Understand whether this integration will be used in an interface or in a process model. D. Understand the different error codes managed by the API and the process of error handling in Appian. E. Understand the business rules to be applied to ensure the business logic of the data. The answer is Abed. As an Appian Lead Developer, designing a complex integration to a RESTful API for updating a case in a legacy system requires a structured approach to ensure reliability, performance, and alignment with business needs. The integration involves sending a JSON payload, implied by the context, and handling responses, so the focus is on technical and functional prerequisites. You have 5 applications on your Appian platform in production. Users are now beginning to use multiple applications across the platform, and the client wants to ensure a consistent user experience across all applications. You notice that some applications use rich text, some use section layouts, and others use box layouts. The result is that each application has a different color and size for the header. What would you recommend to ensure consistency across the platform? A. Create constants for text size and color, and update each section to reference these values. B. In the common application, create a rule that can be used across the platform for section headers, and update each application to reference this new rule. C. In the common application, create one rule for each application, and update each application to reference its respective rule. D. In each individual application, create a rule that can be used for section headers, and update each application to reference its respective rule. The answer is B. As an Appian Lead Developer, ensuring a consistent user experience across multiple applications on the Appian platform involves centralizing reusable components and adhering to Appian's design governance principles. The client's concern about inconsistent headers, e.g., different colors, sizes, layouts, across applications using rich text, section layouts, and box layouts requires a scalable, maintainable solution. You are tasked to build a large-scale acquisition application for a prominent customer. The acquisition process tracks the time it takes to fulfill a purchase request with an award. The customer has structured the contract so that there are multiple application development teams. How should you design for multiple processes and forms, while minimizing repeated code? A. Create a center of excellence, CO. B. Create a common objects application. C. Create a Scrum of Scrum's sprint meeting for the team leads. D. Create duplicate processes and forms as needed. The answer is B. As an Appian Lead Developer, designing a large-scale acquisition application with multiple development teams requires a strategy to manage processes, forms, and code reuse effectively. The goal is to minimize repeated code, e.g., duplicate interfaces, process models, while ensuring scalability and maintainability across teams. You are required to create an integration from your Appian Cloud instance to an application hosted within a customer's self-managed environment. The customer's IT team has provided you with a REST API endpoint to test with. https://internal.network/appy/appy/ping. Which recommendation should you make to progress this integration? A. Expose the API as a SOAP-based web service. B. Deploy the API service into Appian Cloud. C. Add Appian Cloud's IP address ranges to the customer network's allowed IP listing. D. Set up a VPN tunnel. The answer is D. As an Appian Lead Developer, integrating an Appian Cloud instance with a customer's self-managed, on-premises, environment requires addressing network connectivity, security, and Appian's cloud architecture constraints. The provided endpoint, https://internal.network/appy/appy/ping, is a REST API on an internal network, inaccessible directly from Appian Cloud due to firewall restrictions and lack of public exposure. As part of an upcoming release of an application, a new nullable field is added to a table that contains customer data. The new field is used by a report in the upcoming release and is calculated using data from another table. Which two actions should you consider when creating the script to add the new field? A. Create a script that adds the field and leaves it null. B. Create a rollback script that removes the field. C. Create a script that adds the field and then populates it. D. Create a rollback script that clears the data from the field. E. Add a view that joins the customer data to the data used in calculation. The answer is B. C. As an Appian Lead Developer, adding a new nullable field to a database table for an upcoming release requires careful planning to ensure data integrity, report functionality, and rollback capability. The field is used in a report and calculated from another table, so the script must handle both deployment and potential reversibility. You are the lead developer for an Appian project. In a backlog refinement meeting, you are presented with the following user story. As a restaurant customer, I need to be able to place my food order online to avoid waiting in line for takeout. Which two functional acceptance criteria would you consider good? A. The user will click Save, and the order information will be saved in the order table and have audit history. B. The user will receive an email notification when their order is completed. C. The system must handle up to 500 unique orders per day. D. The user cannot submit the form without filling out all required fields. The answer is AD. As an Appian Lead Developer, defining good functional acceptance criteria for a user story requires ensuring they are specific, testable, and directly tied to the user's need, placing an online food order. To avoid waiting in line, good criteria focus on functionality, usability, and reliability, aligning with Appian's agile and design best practices. You are designing a process that is anticipated to be executed multiple times a day. This process retrieves data from an external system and then calls various utility processes as needed. The main process will not use the results of the utility processes, and there are no user forms anywhere. Which design choice should be used to start the utility processes and minimize the load on the execution engines? A. Use the Start Process Smart service to start the utility processes. B. Start the utility processes via a subprocess synchronously. C. Use process messaging to start the utility process. D. Start the utility processes via a subprocess asynchronously. The answer is D. As an Appian Lead Developer, designing a process that executes frequently, multiple times a day, and calls utility processes without using their results requires optimizing performance and minimizing load on Appian's execution engines. The absence of user forms indicates a backend process, so user experience isn't a concern, only engine efficiency matters. As part of your implementation workflow, users need to retrieve data stored in a third-party Oracle database on an interface. You need to design a way to query this information. How should you set up this connection and query the data? A. Configure a query database node within the process model. Then, type in the connection information, as well as a SQL query to execute and return the data in process variables. B. Configure a timed utility process that queries data from the third-party database daily, and stores it in the Appian Business Database. Then use a query entity using the Appian data source to retrieve the data. C. Configure an expression-backed record type, calling an API to retrieve the data from the third-party database. Then, use a query record type to retrieve the data. D. In the administration console, configure the third-party database as a new data source. Then, use a query entity to retrieve the data. The answer is D. As an Appian Lead Developer, designing a solution to query data from a third-party Oracle database for display on an interface requires secure, efficient, and maintainable integration. The scenario focuses on real-time retrieval for users, so the design must leverage Appian's data connectivity features. Users must be able to navigate throughout the application while maintaining complete visibility in the application structure and easily navigate to previous locations. Which Appian interface pattern would you recommend? A. Use billboards as cards pattern on the homepage to prominently display application choices. B. Implement an activity history pattern to track an organization's activity measures. C. Implement a drill-down report pattern to show detailed information about report data. D. Include a breadcrumbs pattern on applicable interfaces to show the organizational hierarchy. The answer is D. The requirement emphasizes navigation with complete visibility of the application structure and the ability to return to previous locations easily. The breadcrumbs pattern is specifically designed to meet this need. According to Appian's design best practices, the breadcrumbs pattern provides a visual trail of the user's navigation path, showing the hierarchy of pages or sections within the application. This allows users to understand their current location relative to the overall structure and quickly navigate back to previous levels by clicking on the breadcrumb links. You are planning a strategy around data volume testing for an Appian application that queries and writes to a MySQL database. You have administrator access to the Appian application and to the database. What are two key considerations when designing a data volume testing strategy? A. Data from previous tests needs to remain in the testing environment prior to loading pre-populated data. B. Large datasets must be loaded via Appian processes. C. The amount of data that needs to be populated should be determined by the project sponsor and the stakeholders based on their estimation. D. Testing with the correct amount of data should be in the definition of done as part of each sprint. E. Data model changes must wait until towards the end of the project. The answer is CD. Data volume testing ensures an Appian application performs efficiently under realistic data loads, especially when interacting with external databases like MySQL. As an Appian Lead Developer with administrative access, the focus is on scalability, performance, and iterative validation.